Nicholas was down the corridor in the privy when his daughter blew up his apartment. He was admiring the new Dolton washout toilet he had recently had plumbed into his own bathroom. Nicholas had considered installing them throughout the palace, but there were rumors of a new flush toilet on the horizon. It would be a pity to be one step behind progress. We must embrace progress, be at the forefront of it, or the salties will be drowned by a tidal wave of innovation. When the first explosion rattled the tower, Nicholas briefly thought it was on his own personal plumbing that could be responsible for the din, but he realized that not even the bottle of home-brewed ale he had consumed with Declan Brocard the previous evening could result in such a disturbance. They were under attack then. Unlikely, unless a ship had managed to approach undetected on a clear summer's afternoon. A thought struck him. Could he have left the cap off the lens box? If so much of a spark took flight in that room. King Nicholas finished his royal business and yanked the door open, quickly closing it again, as a roiling cloud of smoke and flame invaded the bathroom, searing his lungs. His apartment was destroyed, no doubt about it. Luckily, there was no one in his rooms were above them, so the tower's other occupants should easily escape. Not the king, though. King Nicholas the Stupid is trapped by his own moldering experiments. There was a window, of course. Nicholas was a great believer in the benefits of good ventilation. He was a devotee of meditation, too, but this was hardly the time for it. King stuffed a towel under the door to stop a draft inviting the fire in, and flung the window wide. Glass and brickwork tumbled past the entire structure, and the entire structure shuddered as another explosion took the tower. Nicholas poked his head out for a sideways peek, just in time to see a plume of multicolored smoke expelled from his lounge. There go the fuel jars. Below, the courtyard was in chaos. The fire division, to their credit, had already hauled the pump wagon off the base of the shore and were cranking up some water pressure. It was as if the one thing they had plenty of on the Salties, it was water. On any other day, the salt sea spray would have doused the fire, but today, in spite of a stiff breeze, the sea was flat as a polished mirror. One man stood at the base of the tower. He cut a jaunty figure in the French aviator's jacket and feathered cap. At his feet he lay a large leather valise, and he seemed quite amused by the entire exploding tower situation. Nicholas recognized him immediately and called down. Victor Vigny, you came? The man beamed a startling white smile from the center of his tan face. I came, he shouted in a French accent you would not expect from such an attire. And a good thing I did, too. It seems like you still haven't learned to keep a safe laboratory. Another explosion. Blue smoke in a shudder that rattled the tower to its foundations. The king ducked out of sight, then reappeared in the window. Very well, Victor. Banter over and done. Time to get me down from here. Any of that famous Vigny ingenuity make it across the Atlantic? Victor Vigny grunted, and then cast an eye around the courtyard. The fire wagon had a ladder hooked on its flank, a rope, too. Neither were long enough to reach the king. Who designed this thing? He muttered, hefting the coiled rope onto his shoulder. Tall towers and short ladders. Just goes to show who there are idiots everywhere. What are you doing? Asked a man of the fire brigade. Who said you could take that? Vigny jerked his thumb skyward. Him. Fireman frowned. God? Frenchman winced. Idiots everywhere. Not quite so lofty, mon ami. The fireman glanced upward, catching sight of the king in the window. Do as he says, roared Nicholas. That man has saved my life in the past, and I trust him to do it again. Yes, your majesty, I am at his service. Victor pointed the ladder. Lean that against the wall below the window. It won't reach, said the fireman, eager to say something intelligent. Just do it, monsieur. Well, King is getting a little hot under the collar. The fireman grabbed a comrade. Together they propped the ladder against the tower. Victor Vigny was halfway up the stiles before the stills hit the wall. The tower transmitted its vibrations into the rungs, and Victor Vigny knew that it wouldn't be long before it blew its top, like a plugged cannon. The king's apartment was everything above it, and soon would be no more than dust and memories. He quickly reached to the top of the ladder, threading his legs through the rungs. He slid the rope off his shoulder down his arm. Nimble, ain't he? Commented the fireman to his partner. But as I intelligent said, that there ain't no ladder to reach. The debris was showering down, lumps and shards on the entire granite blocks. There was no avoiding it for 3 men working at the ladder. They bore the blows and hunched shoulders and grunts. Lean it back, Victor called down, sweat dripping down his face. He tore the feathered cap off as it caught fire, revealing a shock of spiked hair that had earned him the name Le Brosse. You owe me a hat, Nicholas. I've had that one since New Orleans. The fireman took the weight of the ladder, and the parson pulling him 3 feet back at the tower wall. Victor Vigny took half a dozen coils from his hand and sent them spinning upward. He had judged the coils accurately, landing the spliced end directly in the king's hand. Tie her off strong now, and be quick about it. Victor cinched the rope in the top rung and slid down the stiles as fast as he could without stripping the skin off his palms. Ladder don't reach, the fireman pointed out while Victor plunged his hands into the nearest fire bucket. I know that, monsieur, but the ladder reaches the rope, and the rope reaches the king. Ah, said the fireman. Now, stand back. I know your king. The tower has more explosives in it than a similarly sized cannon. I believe we may be about to shoot down the moon. The fire brigade gave up. They couldn't pump enough pressure to reach the blaze. Even if they could, that fire was all sorts of colors. Pouring water on it might just make it angry. So they stood back out of the spitting castle's range, waiting to see if the last male Trudeau in the line could save himself from death by fire or fall. Inside the bathroom, King Nicholas put his Royal Doulton toilet through its most rigorous test. True, the toilet had been constructed to bear the weight of a hefty adult, but possibly not one swinging from the rope tied to its piping. With a dripping towel draped over his forehead, the king put 4 loops around the evacuation pipe and a few hitches on the end. I really hope that pipe does not burst. Being burned alive is bad enough without being found covered in waste. The bathroom's stout wooden door was cracking with heat as the soldiers battered from without. The steel bands buckled, sending rivets pinging around the room like ricocheting bullets. Nicholas struggled on, wiping his eyes with a towel, inching toward the dim yellow triangle that must be the window. There was no thinning of the smoke, just a faint glow in the center. Just follow the rope, he told himself. It's not that difficult. Move forward, and don't let go of the rope. Nicholas tumbled through the window, remembering to hold on to the rope. He juddered to a halt at the end of the slag, like a condemned man on a gibbet. Quit your dossing, Nick, hollered Victor Vigny. Get yourself down from there. One after the other. Even a simpleton like this fireman here could manage it. I could indeed, shouted the fireman, deciding he would worry about the insult later, if at all. Below the plume of smoke, Nicholas could breathe again. Each successive gasp of fresh air drove toxins from his system, and he returned strength to his limbs. Come down, man. I did not travel from New York City to watch you swing. Nicholas grinned, and his teeth a flash of light. I almost died, Victor. Some sympathy would be nice. These simple sentences were a considerable effort, each phrase punctuated by a fit of coughing. That's it now, said Vigny. The old Nick. Down you come. The king came down slowly, his journey interrupted by several explosions once his feet had found purchase on the top rung. Nicholas descended quickly. There were other lives at stake here, after all, and if he got Victor killed because of his own monumental carelessness, the Frenchman would plague him from the afterlife. Victor had him by the elbows and the boot before his boots touched the cobbles, whisking the king away to the relative safety of the keep. They watched from behind an open-gorged tower as the king's ladder was seared and blackened. What the devil was in there? Said Victor. The king's throat whistled through each labored breath. Some gunpowder, fireworks, a couple of jar experimental fuel, Swedish blasting oil, fused tape. We have been using the old grain store beneath the temporary armory, and of course fertilizer. Fertilizer? Fertilizer is important on the Saltese, Victor. It is the future. He remembered something. Isabella, I must show her I am unharmed. She must see her for herself. He cast his gaze around the courtyard. I don't see her. I don't. Of course, has someone taken her to safety? She is safe, isn't she, Victor? Victor Vigtine did not meet his friend's gaze. His eyes were instead directed over the king's shoulder at the tower's parapet wall. There were two somethings in the midst of smoke and flame. Two someones. A boy and a girl, perhaps 9 or 10 years of age. Mon Dieu, breathed the fireman. Mon Dieu. The turret roof was completely gone, apart from the ragged blocks of walls, as the dragon had grown and now occupied the entire tower, through swaths of smoke and flame. Connor could see the crumbling masonry from falling beams, a thick column of smoke coughed from the tower, which had effectively become a chimney, drawing air to feed the fire. The smoke rose like a giant gnarled tree, black from the summer sky. Isabella was not in the least hysterical. Instead, an eerie calm had descended over her, and she stood on the parapet, eyes glazed as if she was half asleep, and uncertain of the reality of the situation. The only way to fly down is to fly, thought Connor. It had long been his dream to fly once more, but these were not the perfect conditions. He had almost flown on his 5th birthday when the Brocards had gone on a day trip to Hookhead in Ireland to see the famous lighthouse. Connor's present had been a large kite in the salty colors. They had set it loose on the wind-swept seaside pasture, and the sun gust had lifted Connor to the tips of his toes and would have dragged him out to sea had his father not grabbed his elbow. Kite, salty colors, the flag. On the parapet, Connor bounced the flagpole, pulling the knots, holding the bamboo frame. The knots twisted in his hands, pulled by the wind, and flapped the flag in the frame. "Help me, Isabella," he cried. "We must untie the flag." "Forget the flag, Captain Crow," said Isabella dully. "Leave the goat, too. I don't like goats. Sneaky little beards." Connor struggled on with the knots. The ropes were thicker than his slim fingers, but they were brittle from heat and fell apart quickly. With one momentous wrench, he pulled the flapping flag out of the wind, wrestling it to the parapet. It bucked and cracked under him like magic carpet, but Connor kept it secure with his own body. He could barely see Isabella now. She was like a ghost in the smoke. He tried to call to her, but the smoke went down his throat faster than words could come up. He retched and arced like a seal, flapping his arms at the princess. She ignored him, deciding instead to lie down on the parapet and wait for her father. Connor fumbled with his belt buckle, pulling the leather strip out from the loops of his trousers. Then he rolled onto his back, passing the belt behind the flag's bamboo diagonals. This is an insane plan. You are not a pirate on some fantastic adventure. This wasn't a plan. There was no time for plans. This was a desperate act. In the melee of smoke, explosions, and jets of flame, Connor struggled to his feet, keeping the flag's tip low, hiding it from the wind. Not yet. Not yet. He stumbled over Isabella. She seemed to be asleep. There was no reaction when his fingers pulled at her face. Dead? Is she dead? The 9-year-old boy felt tears flow over his cheeks and was ashamed. He needed to be strong with the princess, be a hero like his papa. What would Captain Declan Brockhart do? Connor imagined his father's face in front of him. Try something, Connor. Use that big brain your mother is always talking about. Build your flying machine. Not a machine, Papa. There is no mechanism. This is a kite. Flames climbing the parapet wall, blackening the stone with fiery licks. Crossbeams, carpets, files, and furniture tumbled into the hungry fire, feeding it. Connor lifted the princess, dragging his friend upright. What? She said grumpily. The smoke filled her windpipe, and any words dissolved into a coughing fit. Connor stood straight, feeling like a massive flag flap and crackle in the wind. It's like a big kite, Isabella, he rasped, words around his throat. I will hold you around the waist like this. And when we move to, Connor never finished. Where was I? Never finished his instructions before the further explosion funneled by the tower caused by a massive updraft, plucking 2 children from the parapet and sending the flag spinning into the air like a giant autumn leaf. The circumstances were unique. Had they jumped as Connor's planned, they would not have had enough height for the flag to slow their descent, and the updraft caught their makeshift kite and spun them up another 100 feet, taking them out over the sea. They hung there in the sea plateau of the air tunnel, weightless, sky above, sea below. I am flying, thought Connor Brockhart. I remember this. Then the flying finished and the falling started, as though it were drastically slowed by the flag. It seemed devilishly swift. Then the flying finished and the falling started. Though it was drastically slowed by the flag, it seemed devilishly swift. Sights dissolved in the kaleidoscope of fractured blues and silvers. The flag caught a low breeze and flipped. Connor watched the clouds swirl above him, stretching to creamy streams. All the time he held on to Isabella so tightly his fingers ached. He was crying and laughing, and he knew it would be painful when they hit the water. They crashed into the ocean. It was painful. When he saw his daughter on the parapet, King Nicholas had tried to scramble the tower like a dog climbing out of the well. In seconds, his nails were torn and bloody. Victor Vickney had dragged him away from the wall. Wait, Nick, this is not over yet. Wait, the boy, he's... What? He's what? You have to see it. Come now, we need a boat in case the wind takes them. A boat? A boat. What are you saying? Come, Nick, come. Nicholas howled and dropped to his knees as his daughter flew into the air. Victor watched, amazed. This boy, he was special, whoever he was. Maybe 9, no more than 10. What ingenuity. The explosion took them high. Victor watched their trajectory and then took off the pier at a run, dragging the king behind him. The flag could drown them, he puffed. The frame will collapse, the flag will wrap around them both. The king had recovered himself, and soon outstripped the others through the trader's gate and down the jetty. There were already 6 boats on their way to the fallen flag, and the first to reach him was a small quay punt, sculled across the top waves by 2 muscled fishermen. A line of slower vessels trailed them to the pier. Alive, Nicholas roared, but the distance was too great. Are they alive? The flag was pulled from the sea, and the wet bundles rolled from it. Victor caught the king and gripped his shoulder tight. The little punt spun in a tight circle, and the fishermen pulled for the shore, their oars kicking spume from the water, and the news traveled faster than they could, passed from one boat to the next. The words, inaudible at first, became clearer with each fresh call. Alive! Alive! Both of them! Nicholas sank to the knees and thanked God. Victor smiled at first, then began to clap with delight. I came to teach the princess, he shouted, and no to no one in particular, but I will teach that boy too, or perhaps he will teach me.